Imagine a nation holding its breath, a people tired of waiting, rising up with a demand, a daring ultimatum against a leader whose family has held power for generations. The air crackles with anticipation and defiance. In Togo, the impossible is happening. People are giving President Faure just 72 hours to step down. This is the story of the moment. The uprising begins. Stay with us to witness the courage, the tension, and the uncertainty of this pivotal hour. And if you want to understand the pulse of our world, subscribe right now, so you don't miss stories that reshape nations and touch the human spirit. For decades, the rhythm of life in Togo has been set by the beat of one family's drum, a legacy of power passed from father to son, stretching across more years than many citizens have been alive. This long rule, established after years of political maneuvering and constitutional changes, created a deep sense of inertia, a feeling among many that the levers of power were fixed in place, unreachable and unresponsive to the needs and aspirations of the ordinary people. It was a system that bred familiarity, perhaps stability for some, but for a growing number, it also bred a profound sense of stagnation and a quiet yearning for something different, something more open, more just. Beneath the surface of daily life, a simmering discontent had been brewing, like a storm gathering on the horizon. Promises of progress felt hollow as economic opportunities remained limited, particularly for the youth who saw their futures constrained by lack of access and perceived inequality. Basic freedoms, while often legally enshrined, sometimes felt fragile, constrained by unspoken boundaries and the fear of reprisal for speaking out or organizing against the established order. This created an atmosphere where frustrations built up, unseen by those in power, but deeply felt, in the homes, the markets, and the quiet corners where people dared to whisper their hopes and their grievances about the future they desperately longed for. The weight of this history, the accumulated frustrations, the feeling of being unheard, pressed down on the collective spirit of the nation. Togo, a land of vibrant culture, beautiful landscapes, and resilient people, felt like a giant, held captive, its potential choked by the constraints of a system that seemed unwilling or unable to evolve. There was a pervasive sense that the country was drifting while other nations moved forward, a painful contrast between the possibilities that lay dormant and the reality of daily struggles. This silent burden, this unseen pressure, was the fertile ground upon which the seeds of an uprising were slowly but surely taking root, waiting for the right moment to burst forth. The days leading up to the eruption were marked by an almost tangible tension, a shift in the atmosphere that those who lived through it would never forget. There were whispers, coded messages passed along, hushed conversations in shared taxis and crowded markets. Social media, though often monitored, became a vital, albeit risky, artery for communication, plans hinted at, frustrations openly shared. The sense of collective frustration reaching a boiling point, it was as if the entire nation was holding its breath, waiting for a signal, a shared understanding, that the time for quiet suffering was coming to an end. While often there isn't one single cause, but a confluence of events, a specific catalyst can sometimes ignite the tinderbox of long-held grievances. Perhaps it was a particularly brazen act, perceived as corrupt, a heavy-handed response to a minor protest, or a powerful call to action from a respected voice that resonated deeply with the people, whatever the immediate spark. It hit a nation already primed for change. Suddenly, cautiously at first, individuals began to move, drawn by an invisible force, towards designated meeting points, a few people becoming dozens, dozens becoming hundreds, the trickle turning into a stream, then a river. The initial stages of the uprising were a powerful mix of fear and exhilaration. The fear of the known consequences of challenging authority, learned from past experiences, was potent, but equally powerful was the exhilarating discovery of collective courage. As people saw others, willing to take the risk, their own resolve hardened. The first chance, perhaps tentative at first, grew louder, stronger, as more voices joined in. Makeshift banners appeared, signs written on cardboard, symbols of defiance, held aloft with trembling hands. The first visible signs that the long-simmering discontent was finally bubbling over into open and determined resistance. As the hours passed and the news spread, the initial gatherings swelled in size, transforming from determined crowds into a powerful, unified mass. People from all walks of life, young students and elderly grandparents, farmers and city workers, united by a common purpose, filled the streets. The diversity of the faces, the sheer number of people standing together, shoulder to shoulder, sent a powerful message. The individual whispers of discontent had morphed into a thunderous roar, a collective voice demanding to be heard, a demonstration of popular power on a scale that felt unprecedented. From the heart of this surging mass emerged a clear, unambiguous demand, echoing through the streets, picked up by thousands of voices. Faure must go. It wasn't a request for minor reforms or a plea for dialogue. It was a direct challenge to the very legitimacy of the existing power structure. This demand was articulated by voices that rose above the crowd, perhaps individuals who had long advocated for change, or new leaders forged in the heat of the moment. Their courage in publicly voicing this ultimatum against a regime known for its firm grip on power was immense, a testament to the depth of the people's desperation and their willingness to risk everything for a different future. And then, the demand was solidified, crystallized into a concrete, time-bound ultimatum, a daring challenge. Delivered with breathtaking audacity, President Faure GNASSINGBÉ was given precisely 72 hours to step down from power the moment this deadline was announced. Whether from a podium or simply spread through the crowd and amplified, it carried an almost unbearable weight of significance. The countdown began, not just for the president, but for the entire nation. Every minute that ticked by added to the tension, raising the stakes, making the possibility of either a peaceful transition or a dangerous confrontation increasingly imminent. The news of the 72-hour ultimatum spread like wildfire, igniting protests and expressions of solidarity. In towns and villages across Togo, the movement, no longer confined to the capital, gained momentum, fueled by hope and a shared sense of purpose. People who could not march found other ways to participate, through boycotts, general strikes, refusing to go to work, to school, to the markets, using their collective inaction as a powerful form of protest, paralyzing key sectors and demonstrating the widespread nature of the dissent. The energy of the uprising became palpable, a force that felt increasingly unstoppable. As the pressure mounted, the world watched with bated breath. International media began to report, capturing the images of the defiant crowds, the bold banners, the faces full of hope and determination. Governments and international organizations issued statements, urging calm, calling for dialogue, expressing concern over the unfolding situation. The regime in power, faced with this unprecedented challenge, remained largely silent initially, perhaps assessing the strength and spread of the movement, or contemplating their response. The uncertainty of how the authorities would react hung heavy in the air, a constant reminder of the precariousness of the situation. The streets became stages for the unfolding drama. While the overall mood was one of determined protest, there were moments of tension, confrontations with security forces, instances of courage in the face of potential danger. The stories shared through hastily recorded videos and whispered accounts of peaceful demonstrators standing their ground, of acts of kindness and solidarity within the crowds, became the narratives that fueled the movement, reinforcing the resolve and strengthening the bonds between those who shared the dream of a free Togo. The momentum had clearly shifted. The initiative, for the moment, was with the people. As the clock ticked down, the final hours of the 72-hour deadline became a period of almost unbearable tension. The air in the streets was thick with anticipation, a mixture of fervent hope and deep-seated anxiety. Would the president heed the call of his people? Would a peaceful transition finally occur, ending decades of family rule? Or would the regime resort to force, attempting to suppress the uprising, plunging the nation into uncertainty and potential violence? These questions loomed large, dominating every conversation, every prayer, every anxious glance at the clock in the heart of the crowds. And in the quiet homes across Togo, faces reflected the weight of the moment. There were the determined eyes of the youth, who saw this as their chance to build a future they could believe in. There were the weary lines on the faces of the elders who had witnessed previous struggles, praying that this time would be different. There were mothers and fathers holding their children close, dreaming of a nation where their little ones would grow up with more opportunity and more freedom than they themselves had known. The collective dream of a better Togo was palpable, uniting people from all walks of life in this shared moment of defiance and hope. The fate of Togo, in those critical hours, hung in a delicate balance, resting on the actions and decisions of a few key individuals and the sustained courage of the many. The world watched, cameras rolling, reporters poised, waiting to see which path the nation would take. Would it be a path towards a new dawn, a transition to a more open and democratic future, ushered in by the will of the people, or would it be a return to the shadows, the suppression of dissent, and the continuation of the status quo, enforced by the power of the state? The outcome remained uncertain, the future unwritten. As the countdown reached its climax, the aspirations of a nation poised on the edge of the unbelievable. If this story of courage and defiance resonated with you, please show your support by hitting the like button. What are your thoughts on the people of Togo's bold demand? Share them with us in the comments below. Let's discuss this pivotal moment, and please, join our community by subscribing to the channel, ensuring you stay informed and connected to the powerful narratives shaping our world.